of state of the state, I would talk about the fact that we have 3 Mason-Dixon lines in this state. And one is the Republican-Democrat issue that's going on. I'm frankly tired of it. When I went there, you know, I had some Republican philosophy and that kind of thing. But I've kind of come away, especially this term, feeling a real disdain for how we have not stewarded our supermajority well as Republicans. And Karen, you've heard me say this from the House floor. And, you know, I get looks, and I don't get invited around, and but, you know, the reason I signed 67 and whatever the other number is it 60, what are they? 177. I get numbers totally mixed up. People at the legislature call me, what do you feel about 102? I have no idea. So I don't go by numbers, but, you know, sign those, because there were 5 examples in this legislative term where I stood up and spoke against poor stewardship of our Republican majority. And I could go through those 5, but you know, because I think those were among the 5. So we have this this Mason-Dixon line between Republican and Democrat that I think needs to go away if we really care about our state. The biggest one is the red-white line that's there, and I mean with race, with natives and whites. That's the biggest one. But the one I really want to talk about is this is where I don't have any more notes. Because this is one I just talked about. Is the issue of it's this division between rich and poor. That's the third one in the state. We have a poverty industry that's flourishing here, and you know we can talk all we want about how great it is, but when 50% of the people who are in the grade school have free and reduced lunch, and it's 80% out where I am in my district, in the government village, 80% free and reduced lunch. I mean, it's a wage issue. You know, I'm singing Martin tune right here. I mean, there's a problem with that. You know, I see Irish in there. I mean, he said one time on his blog that you know we got free and reduced lunch up to 50%. I think he said, and we got natives freezing to death across the street in the parking garage. I heard you say that one time. I read that on your blog. So I agree with that. I think that the state of the people is really critical. So this poverty industry, you can Google it. I didn't make up the term. The poverty industry is payday and title lending. It's pawn shops. It's casino gambling, video gambling, and it's subprime credit cards. That's what the poverty industry. You Google it, you're going to find that's what Wikipedia says. It's those 4 things. Payday and title lending, pawn shops, video lottery, and subprime credit cards. My friends, that's our state. I call it the backside of our great places and great places. It's the exploitation of the poor. We have poverty profiteers. Our laws have made it possible. Now, I understand the history of raising the interest rate cap to nothing. You know, it could be anything. In 1981, under Governor Janklow, we have him on video. It was about 400 jobs, not 400% interest rate. It's true. In the economy back then, we brought in Citibank. It has been a huge economic benefit to our state to raise that. But it's also opened the doors to the Wild West when it comes to predatory lending. And we are, no matter what the industry is saying right now, very unregulated in this area. So I have brought in my 5 sessions up there, different bills each time, and they don't get any further than the Commerce Committee. Because we have this, I think, Republican mentality that, you know, if you're stupid enough to sign it, it's a personal responsibility value of the Republican Party, which I understand, but it's not stupidity, it's desperation. How many of you know if you're desperate, you're going to do something you wouldn't do if you didn't have to do it? You may know it's wrong or not wrong, but so people are signing these things. Well, they would also say, well, let the free market work. You know, if there wasn't a need, people wouldn't do it. And, you know, I say, well, the Republican hypocrisy is if it's a free market issue, why are we incentivizing some companies we want here? Why don't we de-incentivize other companies that do hurt our population? And it's not disputed, I know, that this is hurting our population. It hurts our population, poor and elderly. We have people who are coming to us in our coalition. South Dakota's for Republican, or not Republican, no, that's bad, isn't it? South Dakota's for responsible lending. They're telling us their story. People who worked in the industry. It's the worst year of my life. I couldn't stand any longer locking in some lady on her Social Security check because they even have a chart in their training manual, ACE Cash Advances training manual, like page 20, teaches their employees how to get a person. We sent it to Corey Heidelberger at Manville Times. You might see it on there. It literally is a circular chart in their training manual to teach people how to get them into multiple loans. They need one loan and it says they can't pay it back. Lock them into another loan. When they can't pay that back, lock them into another loan. And we have it in their annual reports that say, and in America today, the profitability kicks in at loan 5. Well, we don't have any mechanism in South Dakota to decide, to figure out how many loans people have. Lutheran Social Services Consumer Credit Counseling says they regularly see people with 10 and 15 different loans. And it's not only when you loan somebody money, you want to be responsible. You want to know that they're going to pay you back. Well, they don't care because they'll get paid back when the guy across the street lends them money and charges them $90 on their $200-300 loan. And they make enormous amounts of money. The average payday loan is flipped 8 times, and the average length for one loan is not 12 days as they tell you. We wouldn't even be on their case if it was a short-term loan. The average length of loan is 300 days. And so when we say the average percentage rate in South Dakota for payday lending is 574%, they'll say, hey, it's a 2-week loan. That doesn't even calculate. Well, it's not a 2-week loan. In South Dakota, the average is 300 days. Some of these people are locked in for 2 years. And it's far higher than 574%. The reason we have a ballot initiative to cap it at 36%, it's not because we pulled a number out of our hat and thought, 36 is a good number. 36 is the number that's in 16 states. There's one state that's capped it at 26, Ohio. But the 36 number comes from the Congress. A number of years ago in the Clinton administration, they discovered that payday lenders were targeting our military bases. And it became, this is not hyperbole language, they said it was an issue of national security. When I first read that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Because the payday lenders aren't, Al-Qaeda or something. No, they said it compromised troop deployment. You got these young folks who need a few money, little bucks, they don't have any, real education in financial areas. They lock them into these loans, and they're literally locked in. It's an intentionally crafted, defective financial product that's intended to be a debt trap. And they wouldn't even have it if there weren't multiple loans that a person could have. And so we tried regulation. When we first tried to put this on the ballot a couple of years ago, and Joni Cutler was working on this before me, and Mary Valensky was working on this before me. There were other people. I'm not like the only one who has worked on this. There's been a number of people who worked on this. We decided we're done with the legislature because we're not getting anywhere with the legislature. The voters, listen. In America, payday and title lending has a 9% approval rating. That's the only single digit you'll ever hear anybody use with regard to payday and title lending. 9%. We know that the voters in the state vote them off the island in a heartbeat. In Montana, they voted 72% to get rid of. They were outspent like 100 to 1. This industry has enormous amounts of money at stake to outspend. And so we decided we're not going the way of the legislature. We're going to just take it to the people. And when I started to talk about that, Reynolds was a part of those early discussions in 2012, maybe, because we were trying to put it on the ballot in 2014. Maybe I'm off a year. Maybe it was 13 and 14. I think it was supposed to be on the ballot in 14, so it would have been probably 12. We put it on the ballot. Well, the industry heard about this because we went through the motions. We got it approved the Attorney General. And I started getting phone calls from executives in the payday industry wanting to fly to Sioux Falls to talk to me. They realized the need for regulation in South Dakota. I'm like, well, why have you stood on the other side of the committee for me the last 2 years, opposing every little thing I tried to do? Well, we know that, it's time. And so they came in, they helped me write 15-page reform bill. It had 8 or 9 sections. They wrote the thing, basically. And it didn't even really have the teeth that I wanted, because it's not a rate cap. If you don't cap the rate, you don't fix the problem. But it would have curtailed the excesses 20%. It would cut the industry by 20%. And I was okay. The coalition that I started with Reynolds and the rest of these guys, they were saying, don't you dare. This is a compromise and all that. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try it one more time. And I kicked off the whole coalition, and I went forward with this compromise bill. 2 weeks before the bill went to the committee, all of a sudden these payday people and their lobbyists are calling me saying, well, we don't like Section 3. I'm like, you wrote Section 3. You wrote Section 3. Don't tell me. You told me that you would be a proponent if I did this, not an opponent. Are you changing your mind? Well, we got to talk to some of our this and that. And you know what? Over the next 2 weeks, I lost all the payday industry support, and they were all lined up against me to kill that bill. And I was a fool in that committee, which is fine. I think, you know, I make a fool of myself typically once every 6 weeks. It keeps me humble, and I fix what I say, and I understand that's just kind of who I am. But I walked out and I said, we're going to the ballot. And I'm not going to play their games anymore. They just bought themselves 2 years at a time, made millions more dollars, and we're going to go to the ballot. So that's where we are. We started a coalition called South Dakota for Responsible Lending. We have waited until the legislature was done because they were tinkering with this area of law, knowing what we're doing. And if they tinkered with it, we're already out doing our signature drive. Everything we do changes. We watched what they did in Missouri. We are friends with the people in Montana who did this. And in Montana, they challenged it legally in every way. The coalition leadership, like Reynolds, myself, Steve Hildebrand, were personally sued. Crap from our background was brought, you know, those coalition people were, you know, they tried to compromise those people politically, and they spent $100,000 to do it. Montana. Missouri was worse. The industry knows, and we've heard this from the people who know Chuck Brennan, that he knows that if this gets to the ballot, they lose. They have to keep it off the ballot. And so to keep it off the ballot, you compromise me, you compromise what we're doing, you challenge every little legal thing. So we waited as long as we could. We got our language. We had it sent to the Attorney General, which you have to do next, and he writes a statement. And so that statement came out, we're ready to do our petitions, and they sued. And so they sued already, you might have read that. Payday industry didn't like the language. They wanted it to say, if you cap it at 36%, the sky will fall in South Dakota. Life as we know it will end. There won't be spring flowers. It will completely hurt our water supply. I'm exaggerating. They wanted that Attorney General statement to make up a bunch of things of what happens. Here's the reality. When you cap it at 36%, none of that has happened in any of the 16 states. They say, oh, it's just going to increase, you know, illegal lending in the Dominican Republic. You're just going to go online and you're going to be able to get money that way. But you know what? You can't go online and get money that way. And that's on the increase in every single state. It is not at any higher percent increasing in states with a cap than it is in any other state. It's a federal thing. So we know that. No, the poor won't have anywhere to go. Poor need access to credit. What happened in Montana is the Credit Union Association came alongside because they feel like they failed. I talked to the Dakota Credit Union Association. They said, we failed if this industry was allowed. This is our market. How come the payday industry got in there? This is what we should be involved in. So in Montana, they ran alongside the Cap the Rate campaign, they ran a We Do short-term small dollar loans, $300 for 30 days. So there are possibilities for that. In Dallas right now, the city of Dallas, and I know their loans are guaranteed by the state, and that is not a possibility in South Dakota. But they're doing $1,000, 18% loans in the city of Dallas once a year. And because people do need, once in a while, if they can't get a credit card. People are under the understanding that a payday loan will help your credit and help you rebuild your credit. It creates far more problems than it fixes. A payday loan, you may not know this, it does not get reported to your credit. If you bought anything else, it would, even on a credit card, it would show up what your balances are, and it would be a part of your financial package. You could have 10 payday loans and no one will know about it. The state of South Dakota won't even know about it because they don't do any auditing. They only have one person that can do anything. They don't do anything. They only audit if there's some major complaint somewhere. And there aren't a lot of complaints. You know why there aren't complaints? The industry will say because there's nothing wrong with the industry. There aren't complaints because what they're doing is legal. What are you going to complain about? You signed it. It's just right there. So they have all these things. The sky's going to fall. What's happening in other states in the nonprofit area is the most exciting to me because as a person of faith and in ministry, I am excited about what's happening with coalitions of churches in Philadelphia who are creating funds to lend money at no interest to the poor. Employees are getting it from their employers. Steve Hildebrand yesterday walked one of his employees down to a payday lender. Probably should have asked him before I told the story, but he walked him down, rental her too, walked them down to a payday lender and paid off their $300 loan and said, pay me. I have 52 employees in our church, believe it or not. Most of them are daycare employees. We have a small business. People are getting these loans. It is a better deal for a person to come to me and say, I need $300 on my paycheck. And for employers, I call it compassionate, benevolent business. That's what we need in our state. We need some business people. I mean, if we can figure out how to, get people, you guys like the EB5 issue, if we can figure out how to make that thing work, you think we can figure out how to get loans to the poor people? Absolutely we can figure out how to get loans to the poor people. But we don't want an enormous profit involved in that. And it's just disgusting to me. Because from a religious standpoint, I believe you need to have heart for the poor. If you mess with the poor, I mean, you're going to have problems. You don't want to mess with the poor. And so the sky doesn't fall in these states where there's this kind of lending. It doesn't create a bunch of problems where you cap it. It doesn't. What it does is it eliminates problems. The problems are created when you allow this product. And so, the free market, let people do whatever they want. But I believe in consumer protections too. And I know there's full disclosure on here, but, even the financial products that are out there are very sophisticated. I would bet, all of you as intelligent people who bought and sold houses or own businesses and done different things, you use a lawyer once in a while. I mean, we're talking about the financial industry, trying to get my head, even as one legislator, how do I even make a difference here? How do I write a bill? This is a complex thing. We're dealing with people who are unscrupulous, who are intentionally crafting and marketing a defective product to the financially unsophisticated. And they're succeeding at it. And I think it's time to slow it down and stop. I have no love for it at all. There's I know Mark has been a lobbyist up there for a number of years, but there's a big tall guy named, is it Marlin?
Marley.
Marley. So God bless him, he's a friend of mine. But the first time he and I met, I was bringing the 36% cap bill, and he's totally this industry. I mean, he's the guy up there for this industry, lobbyist and owner. And he's in Florida most of the year, and he comes back up to see if I'm going to do anything to him this year. That's what he literally says to me. And so that first year I was out there, and I think over the years my tone has changed. I've stopped, being so polarizing. I hope that has been evident in my style. But at that time I was still, my rhetoric would bite. Not that it doesn't every once in a while. That's how Steve Hildebrand and I became friends. I said something that profoundly offended him, and he tweeted, "You're an embarrassment to all of humanity," or something like that. And then I said, "Let's have coffee." So some of my best friends, there's got to be a better way to make friends, but that's how I have made some friends. But anyway, this guy Marley was in this committee meeting. Where the Commerce Committee meetings, where it's up there, this little tiny room. It's not even a big committee room, and we're all in there like this. It's like a plane, and on this issue, there's a lot of people that are in that room. All the banking association people, a lot of industry people. Believe me, the number one industry in this state is not agriculture. It's finance, trusts, and and for better or for worse, they're in that meeting. And so it's me, and I forget the other guy there, and then it's Marley sitting there. I get up and do my testimony, and I got up there and I said, the people that are going to come up behind me as opponents are going to tell you that they're financial angels sent from God himself to rescue those who are in desperate need, who have nowhere else to go, and they are there to help. This product is necessary. And I want to tell you, don't buy into that. These aren't financial angels sent by God himself. These are vultures. These are vultures who are circling around those who are barely surviving on the margins of our economy. I write books and preach. The rhetoric gets going, and that's where I get going. But anyway, when I sat down, he was steaming. I could just tell he was a big man. He's a huge man. And I don't know how old he is. Just paint a picture. 70 to 80.
Yeah, he's in his 70s.
He's at least in his 70s. Anyway, so after the meeting, he stands up like this, and then this guy between us. I was glad there was a guy between us. So I've been called a lot of things in my life. I've been called an asshole. I've been called a dim, and he just went off on. And I've never been called a vulture. And then the guy next to me just laughs and he says, "Would you rather be called a?" Excuse my language. I'm the preacher. Would you rather be called an asshole or a vulture? He goes, "I think I'd rather be called an asshole." So anyway, that's what I call him now. No. I don't call him that. But we've become friends. We've had a meal together at the Capitol, and he comes up to me, "You leave me alone this time?" I said, "No, I'm not going to leave you alone." Or, "Yeah, one year I did leave him alone, but I said, we're working on coalition." He goes, "Oh, I can't believe you know." So it's there's a person behind it. I try not to demonize him, but I do think it's really not a good thing to proceed with. So where it's at right now is yesterday the Attorney General said, or he won in the court in Stanley County. Judge Trimble, I think it's Trimble, said the Attorney General's language will stand. They have 5 days to appeal it. For the Supreme Court, we expect they will. They're going to throw every legal thing they can at this thing to stop it and slow it down. And so, we're in a little internal debate about whether we circulate petitions when there's still a possibility of appeal. Because even if the Supreme Court changes one little thing, everything we've done has to be reprinted and all the signatures are gone. So we're very close. We have a Facebook page called South Dakota for Responsible Lending. We hope you would join us on that Facebook page. And we really do need support, financial support. We have a matching grant of $15,000, to say it. And it's going to take some money to get this rolling. We have a little bit, but not much. And we've already had to involve a lawyer, and we have a media company, and we have a coalition. And AARP is the biggest member of our coalition. They have 110,000 members. The most interesting is I'm having more luck right now getting the religious right involved in this than the religious left. So go to work if you are part of, those. I would dichotomize it that way. In Montana, the Catholic Church and Lutheran Church were named coalition partners, and in South Dakota, we're still working on that. And so, but here's what we do have. We have the South Dakota Family Policy Council, and we have the Family Heritage Alliance, which is 600 churches that are of the conservative bent that are going to go pass out signatures. So anyway, I think it's a bipartisan issue, and I wanted to leave time for questions. And hands up. We'll go with Scott first. And then
Scott. I don't know if you watched on Tuesday. Chuck Brennan was the guest.
Yeah.
Did you watch the show?
I did. He had some nice things to say about me.
And I made some comments to him. That I felt that it's just legalized, loan sharking. And of course, he has kind words for you all the time, but he says, Mr. Hickey has tried several times, like you just talked about, in the state legislature to get something done. And he goes, he always fails. So I said, well, and this is part of my question, I said, well, Sanford and First Virginia, they kind of own the legislature, pretty much. And so my question to you is, and he didn't really have much to say to that. He didn't really have an answer. Because we both know that this may affect First Premier in some way, shape, or form. And are you afraid, I see that the payday lenders are already coming after you guys, but are you afraid that, not Sanford, but probably First Premier is gonna get involved in this fight too?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we first started this second round of doing a petition, we were like, we're gonna undo what Janko did, we're putting the cap back on. This isn't gonna affect Citibank because they're already under 36%. First Premier's gone down from 76 or 79%, they're coming down. And responsible corporate citizenship, they're just gonna have to learn how to do this. But we have met with those banks and others, and they know very clearly this isn't some slippery slope, that after we succeed with this, we're gonna go to 36%. Here's why. Because they are a different animal in a different section of law. And under federal law and Supreme Court ruling, all that First Premier has to do is spend $150 and put their charter in Nevada, and they can continue to send high interest solicitation credit cards into the state. It doesn't meet our purposes of taking care of the poor in this state. And so that's a federal issue, and we would lose, $100 million in the state budget if any of those banks decided to do that. So because it doesn't meet our purposes of helping the poor, they can still do it anyway. We are not touching those banks, and it's not true if you ever hear anybody say that what's next is the 36% on the banks. It's a different section of law. This is very difficult law to write, because when we wrote it a couple of times ago, or this 3 or 4 times we've either in bill form or this, how do you write specific to this kind of lending without including in, unclaimed furniture loan and your John Deere loan and your, all these, there's 50 different kinds of financial products, but we only want to touch this. And the payday industry is a master at morphing around law. In Ohio, they capped it at 26%. The industry, instead of leaving, just decided they're going to register as mortgage lenders. Now they're over here and they can do whatever they want. And so we've written it in here. No, you can't do that. So the answer is no, we're not worried about the banks. If Chuck's bringing that up, I heard that the other day. He said I'm a steamroller and a bully, and he compared me to Jim Jones. So. I forget your name.
Okay, well, real quick.
Yeah.
I'll probably be playing bridge if I can catch you before we leave the building. But the reason that I presented that book to you as a gift is because I had promised this group that at the luncheon that I had this chance to meet Steve Hickey, our group New Life Ministry, where all of us are so concerned about the way people are incarcerated. It hasn't changed in 500 years since the laws were first written to keep the king's peace. But all I'm going to say is that one of the reasons why you were a person to try to tweak the interest on this particular issue, last fall as I was circulating petitions in District 14, it really hit me what kind of a loyal base you have. Here's this nice, lovely 60-year-old woman. She had invited me to her home because I said I had a lot of petitions and you're a registered Democrat. And I got there and I started telling her what the petitions were. Well, where is Steve Hickey's petition? Well, he's in a different district and he's not running for governor. He's not running for... And she said, well, that's the only petition that I will sign is Steve Hickey. So I knew you were the right person. I got to go back.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir.
I worked on the bank for 18 years and keep the language of that model. I've got good credit. If I go over 800, but whatnot. But like most people, I occasionally overdraw. An overdraft fee with the bank can be over 100%. And the attorney starts to 12 months overdraft fee for 5 days or something. It doesn't say they lend you. So.
Yeah. I would say, excellent point, and it's one of their biggest arguments is that it's no different than a bank overdraft. It's just no different. And the reason it's different is that they were only charging $100, and that's where their money stopped. I don't think we'd be bothered by it. What's happening is every 2 weeks they're getting $100, and a person who had a has a $5,000 car and they borrow $500 against it, okay, in 3.5 months, the payday or the title loan company owns that car. And so it's not the same as that, but it feels the same if you own.
36% with the banks with hanging overdraft.
Right. I wish they would. I think it's ridiculous the fees and things that are out there.
Yeah.
But if it is a short-term loan, it's the same. If they're just borrowing 12 or for 14 days, it's the same as a bank overdraft. $30.
I know I got automatic.
Right. Yeah. So very good.
If payday loans don't make money, so if this loan and some other loan company, then those people charging over 36% of the or whatever, are they gonna be poor payday loans because they take their bad loans?
Yeah, probably. We do not have the support of the Chamber of Commerce or the retailers, and we don't have the support of the state's core banking associations. That we've been told they're all going to stay neutral, which is all we can ask. But, there's this storyline out there that was, they don't get to pay their loan, I'm not going to get my rent check. But here's the story. Okay, we've checked with the Homeless Coalition, not the Homeless Coalition, who was it, Randall, that you guys met with Steve?
Yeah, so Steve Hildebrand and I went down to county welfare one day just to meet with caseworkers. I'm just curious who the guy with the other camera is there. Who are you?
Oh, Devin Saxon.
Yeah, who are you with?
I'm not with anybody. I'm just
visiting.
Just visiting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
It
nice
could
that
be
you're
one of my friends.
nice that you're here. So I thought maybe somebody could introduce you. So Steve and I went to county welfare and met with some of the caseworkers just to ask, what percentage of people that are coming in for housing assistance, rental assistance, how many of them have a payday loan? And one of the staffers right away said 50 to 80%. And they went on. One of the staffers told a story about a couple where they both were working. She was a nurse. He was doing construction. They each had 6 loans. We just asked the question: how do you get out of that? And what you find is that there really is no way out. Right? The only way out is bankruptcy. And that's why this is a kind of loan. And for those of you who don't know, I'm the treasurer for the South Dakotans for Responsible Lending. So if you do want to make a donation to South Dakotans for Responsible Lending, I'll be around if you want to write a check or give me cash. And
Don't stop at $2.
So don't stop at $2. And we do have this $15,000 matching grant.
That's the first time anyone has accused me of being cheap.
So the only way out really was bankruptcy. And so at some level this is really destructive to other firms, right? And it's part of the frustration for those of us who do charitable work in this town, feeding people at the banquet or giving food to Feeding South Dakota. One of the things that's driving people into those ministries is because people are using their cash to pay off the payday lenders. They're having to give money to Chuck Brennan, right? It's Chuck Brennan that's taking their food money. It's Chuck Brennan that's taking their lunch money. And then people are coming back and asking you to help contribute and take care of people. If Chuck was just gone and people came to us hungry, that would be a lot easier to deal with than people that come to us hungry with a payday loan hanging over it, right? So we need to.
And by the way,
that
that reminds me, I got to ask this. In the long biographical sketch in the Argus Leader about a month ago on Brennan, I guess his wife is in exile in Las Vegas because she's worried about her very life, and it sounds like you might be somewhat responsible for that. Can you tell us how your Christian ministry and trying to wipe out his wife are connected?
I don't have any intelligent thought on that. I'm not. I don't even know what his wife looks like. I can assure you that she's safe around me and everyone that I know. But he said one more question, and I think I'm going to go over here because this guy has had his hand up.
I read in the newspaper that there's a growing number of people that classify themselves as nuns, meaning that they don't claim any religion at all.
Yeah.
And yet, the large majority of Republicans would classify themselves as Christians.
Yeah.
And yet what this said was that the nuns were more liberal on social issues than our Republicans. And as a minister and as a Republican, with so many references in the Bible to the poor and foreigners, don't you find that troubling?
Yeah, I do. I think that Jesus isn't Democrat or Republican. I think that the foundation of his throne, if you want to talk about religion, is justice and righteousness. So it's not just helping the poor; it's some right and wrong issues. So I think that's a balance. But ignore all that. Here's what I would say about religion. And I talked to the Argus about it yesterday because they're talking about incarceration and what do we do about recidivism in our. And I said it's not about the day they get out of prison; it's the day they get into prison. We need to start treating them with dignity as human beings, introduce them to their dignity as a human instead of just punishing their depravity. And I said there needs to be a sociological application of the gospel. And don't listen to a preacher here. I'm just saying, not a theological or a devotional application of the gospel, but taking it as a philosophy and a sociology that people can be redeemed, that people have value, that there is a second chance, that I could continue on, but what I'm saying is, if the Republican Party's religious, stream would embody the tenets of the gospel, I think the state is in a better place. And not theological. Don't hear me say in a devotional way where I'm telling you got to have my religion or anything like that. I do not mean that. But I believe everybody comes to public office with some worldview, and I, of course, have a Christian orientation, as does most of our state in some way. But I don't think it should be a theological or a devotional application, but certainly let the themes of redemption work in our criminal justice system. Certainly let the themes of compassion for the poor work in with the poor. So yes, there's a place for religion. I'm happy with more questions, and we'll stay around because I think people will have some.
I do want you to know I did try to cut Jim Abrest off at 1 o'clock too, so this isn't anything. Chuck Brennan, for those of you that don't know, is Dollar Loan Centers and is the one trying to build us the pawn shop Disneyland across from the event center. So, thank you all for coming, and next week we'll have the city planning.
Do you have a business card in your blog?
A business card?